So this is a video I didn't think I'd be making, but it's definitely a video that I am very happy to make. Today we are talking about a potential jet rework for Battlefield 2042, where jets are so bad that I had to dig up some old BF4 footage just to get something watchable. So for those who don't know, my entire YouTube channel really did grow through flying fixed-wing aircraft and video games. 0 to 500 subscribers was like the Arma 3 and Battlefield 4 days. Those two games really solidified my love for flying in combined arms shooters. Then Battlefield 5 came along, and that game, along with a couple returns back to Battlefield 4, really took my channel from nothing to this whole community that we have today. In Battlefield 4, and even partially in Battlefield 5, my videos showed that an entirely different way of playing the game was possible, and I think people enjoyed the videos because it wasn't really something that was easily repeatable, but it was something that you could learn if you put the time in, and I was always happy to try to explain how to do things. Now, in Battlefield 2042, everything changed for vehicle gameplay. I truly thought Battlefield 5 and 1 were the lowest we could go, but DICE doubled down on some of their worst mistakes and produced the most poorly designed vehicles in franchise history. At first, I still tried to force it. I tried to make jet videos showing my best attempts at having fun, but even on the video that had world record gameplay, people just weren't impressed. And why should they be? There really isn't anything impressive about 2042 jet gameplay in any capacity. I mean, how many different ways can we lock on AGMs onto a target or spam buggy active radar missiles? There's no creativity and barely any room for growth. Something that I was saying on stream the other day is that the heli record, because helis have a higher skill ceiling, has continuously moved higher and higher and higher. My jet record of 87-0 in a 128 player breakthrough match has yet to be beaten. If there was a real skill ceiling in the game, that record would be gone within months. But there really isn't that much room for improvement, much room for growth, and that gameplay still looks pretty decent even today. Thing is, at launch, the Nightbird was similar, but through a series of reworks and balance changes, it is in a pretty good spot where you can clearly see someone's skill and practice shine right through. Now finally DICE is ready to give the same treatment to the jets, and they've opened up a Discord thread for community feedback. It was great to see a bunch of familiar names throughout the thread, and there's still a bunch of us that really do care about jets in Battlefield and how great they can be. So in this video, we're going to go and try to combine the best of everyone's feedback to get jets where they should be, and to make things easier, I'll break up the improvements into a few categories. We have flight model and physics, weapons, quality of life, and content. So starting out with a flight model and physics, it was clear throughout the thread that this is probably the biggest issue with jets as of right now, and most people agree on a few key issues. The biggest issues that keep coming up are the jets feel floaty, unresponsive, and they lack any means of gradual aim adjustment. The jets have felt floaty since release, but the unresponsiveness and aim adjustment issues have been further increased in Season 4. Right now, you'll apply a vehicle, even just a single key press, and then after a short delay, the jet will move. It won't just move gradually either, it will move a pretty large amount. Black Angel, who's a pretty good pilot himself, said it was something like 15 degrees compared to the 5 degrees of Battlefield 4. Now, this is a huge issue because unlike a helicopter, the jet has a very short period of time to do damage, and then it has to pull out of the strafe. You can't just hover there and keep on correcting and correcting and correcting. You have to be able to know exactly how the jet's going to respond and aim properly. You just don't have time to make an input, wait for the delay, correct it, and then wait for another delay, correct it again, and so on. It's really frustrating to work with, and to fix this, DICE need to change the flight model so input delays are pretty much next to nothing, and they also need to reduce the sensitivity of the yaw and pitch so that gradual adjustments are possible again. The most important one for most people is probably going to be that yaw sensitivity. It's just way too jagged. You need to make it really gradual so you can finely tune your aim. Pitch sensitivity, because you can do that on the mouse, isn't quite as important, but still they do need to look at it. Now, the next key point is probably the most predictable, that's speed control. Now, for those who don't know, BF3 and BF4 had speed control. I'm not sure about other games, but the closer you get your speed to 313 km an hour, the faster you turn. Great pilots could keep it pretty much there on the dot, only overshooting or undershooting by a few digits. Thing is, as Speedland pointed out, this created a barrier to entry for dogfighting. It also created some pretty loopy dogfighting metas, and having a single perfect value for speed was also a prime target for macros and cheats. And this isn't just some shitter who doesn't know what they're talking about and can't master speed control. Speedland was like one of the best dogfighters of all time. He had speed control well and truly mastered. This isn't someone who couldn't do it, so they don't want it in the game. He could do it, but he doesn't want it because him, like many others, do understand that it does create a bit of a barrier to entry. But it did create a great skill gap as well, and as Heber said in his post, if you're much better than the other pilot, you should be able to kill them in under 10 seconds in a game like Battlefield, where jets are extremely vulnerable. If you're in a dogfight, you're stuck in a looping motion, only able to really change that loop just to attack them in different ways, like with switches and cuts and stuff like that. You can't actually leave the dogfight once you enter a dogfight. If you do that, you're probably going to die. So it's very, very important that you can close out dogfights against bad players very, very quickly. Now, I think for this reason, we do need some form of speed control, but I do kind of agree with Speedland as well, where having it on one single value does create a bit of a barrier to entry. So I do think they should add speed control, but they should add it on a range of values. For example, 308 k's an hour to 313 should all result in the same exact perfect turn speed. Now, moving on to weapons, I think he made a really, really good point to get us started. Currently, the core gameplay loop for jets is dysfunctional. The gun is insanely overpowered to mitigate the atrocious handling. And now this is a great point. If DICE was to totally fix the physics, or add BF4 physics for example, without changing the weapon balance, jets would all of a sudden become completely overpowered. So it is very important that the jets are reworked as a whole. Now, the first common piece of feedback has to do with the alignment of the main gun. Currently, it is not aligned with the crosshair and it is pointing slightly down. Now, this must be fixed to be either straight on or perhaps pointing slightly upwards like a real fighter. Now, the next piece of feedback has to do with the actual mechanics of the gun. Currently, the gun does a lot of damage, but just like the physics, it feels all over the place. It is heavily affected by the sway and yaw of the jet. And to fix this, bullet velocity should be increased. And assuming physics are also improved, damage can also be toned down. Now, the gun also has spread on it like a regular Battlefield weapon, but spread on a jet cannon just doesn't really make much sense. The whole point of spread is to limit the engagement range, but jets should have a pretty far engagement range because they have to be able to strafe from a long distance and then slowly close that in. And having spread over time, it could work in theory, because when you're further away, you have tighter spread, and as you get closer holding down the cannons, the cone of fire increases a little bit, and it rewards you being more and more accurate as you keep on strafing. But just the initial spread doesn't really need to be there at all. Now, once this gun is fixed, the secondaries should also be revamped. Everyone in this thread seems to want pods and JDAMs. I think JDAMs might be a little bit too strong and they're not in the game already. But since pods are already in the game, DICE could just add the Nightbird pods onto the jets, and then they add some vehicle splash damage as well, which is what Heap said in his post. They don't need to be too strong, they just need to be something that's dumbfire rather than the boring lock-on options, because I don't think anyone really enjoys spamming radar missiles or AGMs. There's no real creativity with that. Now, moving on to quality of life features, there is a laundry list of easy improvements, and I'll just list them out. So, rear cam needs to be fixed so you can turn and look backwards at the same time. Jet auto throttle needs to return as it was in Battlefield 4. Jet camera roll option needs to be fixed when set to off. It did work really well in all the previous titles up until now, so just do whatever worked in those previous games. Now, the VTOL on the F-35 also needs to be changed, so it's not a one-button thing. Currently, it's one of those issues, as we said before, where a really low-skill pilot can delay a dogfight for way too long. It should be able to be engaged, but it shouldn't just be a one-button press. There's no skill in that. And jet radar missiles, they need to be fixed so they don't go through flares. And finally, ECM jammer that can be added from Portal.
Holy shit!
So now on the content side of things, which is the last section we have here, for many updates now, DICE have been porting the Portal weapons into the main game modes, and everyone in this thread wants to see the A-10 and the Su-25 make a return to Battlefield, and we pretty much all think that these jets have a place in the game. Whether you like flying or not, having A-10s on the battlefield really does make the game feel like it belongs in the franchise. Thing is, the A-10 and Su-25 would be overpowered in their current state. It does pain me to say that as an A-10 enthusiast, but with all the following changes, I think they could fit right in. So to start, the flight model in the A-10 must be copied onto the Su-25. The A-10 has speed control, the Su-25 does not. I believe the A-10 flight model is better, just copy-paste it onto both jets. Now, the turn speed also needs to be changed so it has a chance against the fighters. Now, I think the best way of doing this is with speed control. I think they should give the A-10 the same maximum turn speed as the fighters have, but to achieve it, you must have a perfect speed of 313, rather than the range that the fighters could have of 308 to 313. Now, to further differentiate the fighters and attack jets, I think the radar on the attack jets should be nerfed so fighter jets have better radars. Radar technology is something that's always kind of improving with the current generation of fighter jets, and I think this should be represented in the game. So some ways of doing this could include fighter jets being able to detect jets even while ECMing. Fighter jets could also have a better radar distance. Fighter jets can also be able to see under radar targets, and you could even remove the radar on the attack jets. Again, I think this would be a really cool way to balance the game and also kind of make it represent real life a little bit more. Now next, I do hate to say it, but the attack jet cannons do need a nerf. Nothing too insignificant, but they're just a little bit too strong right now. Start with a small to moderate nerf and then go from there. Don't make it a pea shooter. Please don't make the A-10 a pea shooter. The A-10 should be kind of scary. It is a scary jet, but just don't leave it in the broken state that it's in right now. Now finally, the rocket pods are decent, but they are a bit inconsistent with their alignment. This just needs a bit of looking at. And with all that said, I think we've covered jets. I really hope someone at DICE does see this video, either for 2042 or even the next title. Now DICE have said that the community has been consistent with their feedback, and they have heard it loud and clear. They're now taking it all in and summarizing it for themselves. I thought just as an experienced jet player, I'd summarize what the key takeaways are. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed, and let's pray that some A-10 gameplay isn't too far away. I mean, every time I think about jets in Battlefield 2042, it just does make me a little bit sad, because they really were something that I loved so much in those previous games. Anyways, with all that said, peace guys, take it easy.